This is JP Gilmore with Vintegrity Wines, and this is another edition of My Favorite Bottle at Osteria Il Centro. I have with me today John Retsis, or JR, from First Drop Wines. He's come to us all the way from Australia. Welcome.
Thanks, JP. It's good to be here. It's my second trip to Missouri. Love the place. So, looking forward to getting around and meeting some of the locals.
How long are you in the U.S.? How often do you travel over here? And is it vacation or work for you when you come over?
Sure. Look, I love being in the US. It takes about 20 hours to fly here. It's
Wow.
a long, long flight. And it takes a long while to get over the jet lag, but it's definitely worth it. The US is a great country. We love coming here. I get here twice a year. In terms of work, sure it is work, but when you love what you do and you love making wine and telling your story, it's not so bad. So we have lots of fun.
Okay. JR, in California winemaking terms, we tend to think of estate wineries that have their own vineyards and make wines from those vineyards, sometimes single vineyard wines. Is it exactly the same in Australia? Is there a different model?
Yeah, it's slightly different. More so where we come from in the Barossa Valley and to a certain degree the McLaren Vale, where small farmers have been growers for generations. In the Barossa, for instance, we have about 2,000 independent grape growers who grow grapes from their own unique plots and then sell them to wineries.
Okay.
So that's the way we run our business. So it gives us a great opportunity to diversify our grape supply to different aspects of the region in terms of terroir, in terms of mesoclimates, to dial up different flavours and what we're looking for. Whereas we do have some single estate wines, but they're all purchased from growers that we don't actually own any vineyards, which is quite typical in our region.
Okay. And do you have any favorite growers that you try to get their fruit every single vintage you can?
Absolutely. There's, all our growers are very special and do a great job. But there's definitely some iconic sites around the Barossa where we take our single vineyard wines from in areas in Ebenezer, in Seppeltsfield and in Greenock,
Okay.
which I guess quite famous both viticulturally and also historically to the region. As I said earlier, we'd been growing grapes there since the 1840s, and there's quite a lot of grape growing history in those little sub-regions.
Well, JR, I wanted to ask you about the wines we're tasting tonight for the event. We've got 5 wines. Could you kind of take us through the different wines that we're going to have tonight?
Yeah, sure. 5 different wines, 4 from the Barossa, 1 from McLaren Vale. In the Barossa Valley, we run our Shiraz and I guess Spanish program, so it's Shiraz, Garnacha and Tempranillo. In the McLaren Vale, we grow Cabernet and Portuguese grape varieties like Touriga Nacional. So today we have a Garnacha, the Matador Garnacha. I think motivated by those really light, easy drinking, quite aromatic Grenaches that you always get in Spain. Thinking of tapas bar, having some chorizo, some jamon, some olives, some manchego, and those really smashable, easy to drink
And smashable
wines.
meaning?
Drinkable.
Okay, we would call that poundable here.
Poundable,
I think so.
yeah, really
Right.
poundable. Just something that you just drink without thinking too much. But it's also a really rewarding drink. You just can't put the glass down. Then there's Mother's Milk Shiraz, and as the name suggests, Mother's Milk is totally about drinkability. So a wine that's made to be drunk with not too much, a bit like the Matador. Don't think too much, just drink it. Really soft, easy expression of Barossa Shiraz, really quite sort of slurpy and textured. And then we have Half and Half, I guess inspired by those wines of Spain and Portugal, where it's a blend of 50% Shiraz and 50% Monastrell. That sort of fruit forwardness of Shiraz, those quite sort of plummy primary fruits, tempered by the earthiness and savouriness and spice of Monastrell, make a really cool expression of both.
Okay.
And then moving down south to McLaren Vale, which is about 100 kilometres south of the Barossa as the crow flies, a beautiful little region right near the ocean. And this particular vineyard is about 3 or 4 miles off the coast of Aldinga. So warm days, but cool nights, classic maritime climate. And Cabernet loves to be grown near the sea, and a testament to that is, I guess, Bordeaux and the Napa. So extends that ripening period to develop full Cabernet flavoured, but a bit like Mother's Milk. Mother's Ruin's made in an easy drinking style with softer tannins and juicier fruits, but still some really quintessentially Cabernet characteristics. And then 2% Shiraz, which is, I guess, for a better way of describing it, our reserve Shiraz. So comes from the three sub-regions of Ebenezer, Seppeltsfield and Greenock. So quite concentrated, quite rich expression of Shiraz. But the 2% is the twist. It's 2% Tempranillo in the blend.
Okay.
Which gives some high tone lift to the nose, some aromatics, but also fleshes out that mid palate and just gives it a really sort of more unctuous mid palate and makes the wine a little bit more complex. So 2%, a little bit goes a long way, but it's a really interesting interpretation of the Barossa.
Great. And I'm noticing kind of a nod to Spain in some of the wines.
I mean, we in this particular bracket there is definitely love the wines of Spain and Portugal, but we also make wines that have heritage in Italy. So we make Nebbiolo, we make Barbera, Montepulciano, Arnese, and Pinot Grigio. But today, I guess the nod is to Italy, is to Spain. I beg your pardon.
Okay. So obviously, you've got really creative, colorful labels. We think about Bordeaux labels, and they're usually a white background and just block print, very plain, very classic. Yours are really different. Tell me about those. For example, the Matador. Picture of a bull, a matador. What's your inspiration for your labels?
Yeah, sure. Look, we believe wine, like people, has its own personality. So we're all different. We all wear different clothes. So why not do it with wine? So the Matador is a salute to those wines of Spain. So it has a somewhat it has a bullfighting poster on it. And I believe that sort of suits the character of that wine. And each of the labels are totally different. So in terms of the brand, it's the ultimate anti-brand. There's each wine has its own personality, and Matt and I spend a few hours at the pub having a few beers and just sort of going through what the label should be for each wine each time we make a new wine. So it's a fun process, and typically we wake up with a few hangovers, but it's the best way to be creative. It's what we do. It's what we've always done, and it's who we are.
So, and I've always heard that it takes a lot of beer to make good wine. Is that true?
It
Sounds
takes,
like good wine labels as well.
Yeah, it takes a lot more beer than you think to make good wine, and lots of beer to make a great label. And I hope that they're appreciated for what they are. We're very serious about the winemaking. Matt's been Young Winemaker of the Year in 2004 and Young Gun of Wine in 2007. So he's a very decorated winemaker, but we have lots of fun with the pack and the packaging and the labels and telling the story. Because at the end of the day, wine is about fun, and if you can't have fun doing what we do, well, then something's wrong. So it's great. It's been a great journey.
JR, I notice your wines are finished with a Stelvin closure or a screw cap rather than cork finished. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. In Australia, we've got a history of packaging a lot of our wine in screw cap. It just creates a more consistent closure. Definitely in white wine, it keeps white wine fresher for longer. The wine does age, but be it a little slower. But the issues that we have with corked and cork wine is just doesn't exist with screw caps. So for us, it's the best closure. Is the customer, the client gets the best wine every single time. So screw cap is for us, where it's at. The rest of the world is slowly heading that way, but we're definitely converted to screw cap.
Okay, and for me, they're a lot easier to open, so let's have a taste, shall we?
Let's smash one out.
All right. Now that the glasses have magically appeared, let's try some wine.
Let's do it. So as I was saying earlier, a really sort of soft, juicy expression of Grenache, some high tone aromatics, a little bit of spice, and some really round, voluptuous fruit.
Yeah, grapefruit comes out very much at the beginning.
Yeah, just bring the hum on and the bread, and we're away.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers, good luck.
JR, what recommendations would you have for someone that's just learning about Australian wines and maybe just getting interested in tasting those?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in America, Australia is a little bit misunderstood for lots of reasons. In 10 or 15 years ago, there was a lot of big Australian wines that were potentially, overripe, and also lots of different labels with lots of different characters and critters on them, and that was, I guess, what Americans saw from Australia. There's over 2,500 wineries in Australia with 2,500 stories, small family businesses that have been making wine for a long time, for generations, and that's the part of the discovery, I think, that is a great opportunity for Americans to learn about Australia. So not only from the Barossa, the Adelaide Hills, McLaren Vale, but there's also cooler climate wines from the Yarra Valley in Victoria, the Mornington Peninsula, Tasmania, Margaret River, that speak of their terroir and speak of many stories that the winemakers have. So my advice would be to try to buy wineries wine from small producers and discover Australia and discover the true terroir, the true aspects of each of the different regions, because it's a big country. It's almost the size of America, and it's just got so much to offer from a wine perspective. So yeah, by all means, buy Australia with confidence, and there's a lot of stories out there that are definitely worth discovering.
Wonderful.